Thunderbolts. I just got back from the movies. Watched this movie. It's a pretty damn good movie. Uh, but I'm bad at talking, so I figured I would write a little review thing, which will be easier for me to follow and for the people to follow. So I guess I'll just begin. Thunderbolts is the latest movie by Marvel Studios, and I can safely say that it is easily the best Marvel Studios film in quite some time. I think it's one of the finest examples for any studio in Hollywood that with a good set of directors and people working on the film, it can transcend the boundary that a studio sets for itself. Yes, you walked into this movie with the idea that it's a Marvel movie. Granted, you saw the trailers, and the trailers were pretty good, but you walked out realizing that it was so much more than just your average Marvel film. Specifically, this movie was a love letter to mental health, and it's a perfect time to release this movie in May because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. But obviously, with any movie, there are things that just weren't the best, so there wasn't that many, but I will get into it first. One of the biggest things I had an issue with was underutilization. There were certain things in the film that I feel were underutilized or simply just not done. Given the big cast, it's possible for some of those characters to have been shadowed over the bigger cast members. But given the fact that the characters are meant to be a team, I expected a little bit more building between them. We did get a bit, just not a lot. The main contributing factors to that is Ghost and mostly Taskmaster, because, I mean, as a lot of the trailers depicted, Taskmaster was not present for a lot of it. It literally killed off within the first 10 minutes, which I think is really bad, but it's okay, I guess. I feel like it was one of those things where they just simply wanted the character gone because there was no real place for them within the MCU currently. And I feel like maybe they could have pushed it, but I guess they just wanted to let that go. Um, they got like one line of dialogue, and then they were literally fucking incinerated, and they were just never talked about again, except for like one moment they were mentioned, but aside from that, they're pretty much gone for the entire film. Ghost, on the other hand, basically solidifies their name. They're kind of just there, but not there. They barely talked in the film. They didn't have any dialogue, and when they did, it was kind of just whatever. Didn't really add anything. They kind of just they seemed to be the biggest. They seem to have the biggest ego of the entire team. I feel they you know barely had anything going for them, and they just felt like they were hot shit. And I get it. I think the point is that they all think that they're better than each other, which is something that they talk about multiple times in the movie. But for them to feel like they were hot shit when they did like the bare minimum is kind of funny. While the rest of the characters have their fair share of getting annoyed at each other and bragging about how fucked up their lives are to one another, it's like they basically forgot what Ghost was as a character and they're just there. Fortunately, uh spoilers, the after credits. I mean, every Marvel movie has an after credits, but they are probably going to build into most of these characters again. Hopefully, give them more character because there's a lot of promise from some characters that you didn't expect. Like I think Bob as a character has a lot. Lewis Pullman did a really good job on his character. Uh, Yelena, Red Guardian, John Walker, they all have a lot of promise, and I think they should definitely continue to build into those characters. And I think they're going to. I mean, if you've seen the movie, then you know what I mean. But yeah. Another thing I didn't like too much about the movie were all of the scenes with Valentina that just kind of pinpointed the plot over and over. They did it so many times, and I think it was just like the classic Marvel directing decisions that you'd find in like a regular Marvel film just seeping into this film, because this film had a lot of influence from other directors and other producers, but it's still a Marvel movie at the end of the day. And I think they believe that people who watch Marvel movies are not very smart. So they have to continuously to remind you like where the movie's going, or else they think that you're going to be lost. Which I guess maybe some people need, but not me personally. Uh I don't know. It was really annoying. But I think all of that for Valentina did pay off in the end, because they are going to set her up to be much more than she was this entire time. And praying to God that they do it correctly. But that's about it for the negatives. I have a lot more positives to say. Uh, there was plenty of good stuff in this film. A lot of the acting was pretty outstanding for a Marvel film, and even the humor and cheesy lines were relatively charming as opposed to the forced stuff we would get in like previous films. The way that every character was brought in was actually pretty clever, and I guess it was kind of a expected twist, but it was almost surprising to see like how it played out. Like they didn't just like slam a bunch of characters together. Like it actually made it make sense, and I think that was really cool. Just the way that they did it was really interesting. Um, every man for themselves is a topic that gets played out in the film, but you know, through the power of friendship, uh, everything gets solved. And it's funny because that's what people were expecting, but like that's literally how that has to go. Because once you see like what Sentry's capable of, you understand that like it's not possible. Um, but speaking of these characters, these actors specifically had a major impact on me. Uh, especially like Florence Pugh and David Harbour. They knocked it out of the park. Their comedic acting, serious acting, and just overall acting in general for their character was phenomenal. Phenomenal. That's what the word is. And I actually cried during this movie, and I cried twice. Two times, which is two more times than most Marvel films. I think the last Marvel film I genuinely shed a tear for was Endgame or Infinity War. One of the two. But they have not gone this deep in a long time. The beginning of the film, at about 10 to 20 minutes in, Florence shares very heartbreaking dialogue about being empty and alone and moving without purpose, and it was like actually like heartbreaking to hear. Like just the way the wordplay that she used in her lines, like just the way that it was scripted, it was really well done at like tugging at your heartstrings. They really did a great job, and it fucking shattered me hearing it. Like it felt real. It's something that you didn't really expect to hear from like superhero characters or like just Marvel in general. You rarely ever see like deep dialogue like that, but it got serious. Uh, and I take my mental health very serious, and I think it definitely stuck out and will probably have a really good impact on a vast majority of people who watch the film because I think that a lot of people will be able to relate to it. And people who didn't like Yelena before are probably gonna think that that's her favorite character now. She did a fantastic job. Uh, so did Red Guardian. There was a moment in the film where Red Guardian and Yelena, you know, come back together and like have this heartfelt reunion together that really, solidifies them as the stars of the film. I think they were definitely the two best aspects of this film, and I don't think anybody is surprised by that notion because they were definitely the biggest stars of the film, if you don't count Sebastian Stan. But the Winter Soldier didn't really have much of an impact on this film. A lot less than I expected. But you know, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell's John Walker, and the rest of the cast are all incredibly solid for the most part. Uh, Lewis Pullman as Bob Sentry and spoilers, the Void. They're all basically three different characters played by the same actor, and they're all done in such a great way. It's basically three completely different performances from the same actor, and I think he really did shine. And that was not what I was expecting. I really just expected this random, you know, just villain of the movie, but it was so much deeper than that. And obviously, I'm not familiar with the source material, the comics, whatever you want to call it, but I think for someone that doesn't know the character, I think they did a fantastic job. Uh, the introduction of Sentry was probably one of my favorite parts of the film. Literally just him standing in a room while the Thunderbolts try to take him down, and he's just sitting there experimenting with his abilities. Like you could see his breakdown in his physique and his character and his mannerisms, and you could see just how like full of energy and power he is at that moment. And it was like one of the coldest parts of the film. He did a fantastic job. And the lines from the void and just all of that surrounding scenes, like the third quarter, the last part of the film is absolutely phenomenal. Like it, easily one of the best Marvel films in a long, long time. Uh, you know, all the deliveries from Lewis, Florence, and David shine bright, especially given the month that we reside in, but the overall state of the world right now as we know it, which is basically unknown. Despite the witty ways we shut it down, the advice we can give to ourselves by saying something as small as pushing it down or getting over it can have so much weight, not only on real lives, but the lives of the characters from these films. And I think that gives them more personality, makes them more human, more relatable. You know, they play the joke that they're like not meant to be a team, but they work really well as a team. They have really good chemistry between one another, for the most part. And they're definitely going to build into it more because I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to see these characters together. But it's something more raw than you'd see from, say, the Avengers or any other team for that matter, because they don't really get into the gritty physique of like mental health. This was the perfect way to do it with characters that already are built on all of their trauma. Most have overcome it and most haven't, but now they're able to, overcome all of it together as a team. Like it completely baffles me that a movie franchise that spewed out fucking Ant-Man 3 was able to produce a movie that was this good. I'm in awe. And hopefully, they continue to do more films like this. It's a prime example of how good a Marvel movie can be with the right set of people working on it. And after some recent messy examples, I just hope that they continue to lead this path to a future where Marvel can be considered something more than just like cheap garbage. A lot of people like don't give credit to Marvel, but when they get their credit, it's totally due. This gives me hope that the future of Marvel can finally start looking brighter than it has, and I suppose we won't need to wait that long because Fantastic Four is right around the corner and that movie looks fantastic. No pun intended. But if you think I should do a review on that film, you should let me know in the comments, as I'm trying to branch out and give my thoughts on films because, watching movies with my mom is like a big thing for me. And I think, we are avid moviegoers, so I feel like our opinions on movies can be relatively valid. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the film as much as I did, and I hope to see you stick around with a like and a subscribe. Leave a nice comment. Let me know if I should review the Fantastic Four movie. Have a good day, night, afternoon. Be sure to tune into my daily streams if you're interested in more content from me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Ozzy2002 underscore, or subscribe to get more videos like this one. Take care and have a good day.